Okay, so here's the question, David. I'm hoping you can help with this one. Have you ever tried to put together a particular set of data and realize there are sites that you need tested to complete the picture or give you what you need, and then successfully gotten one of these organizations to add it to the data?
Well, the first part of that, have I ever worked on a data set and realized that you need more information or more testing to complete the picture? Absolutely. Then there's the second step of this, right? That to be able to successfully go out and get organizations to add it to the data. I guess that depends a lot on the nature of who's overseeing that particular data source and how they receive things in. Hopefully, most of those groups would be able to be, pretty helpful with this. I think you might be talking about groups that have put together maps that you access through ArcGIS Online. I imagine that might be a little bit more challenging to kind of reach out to this broad community and connect with somebody in particular and ask them to enhance something. But I do think that that some of these people probably would be willing to do this, and others may not. So I'm hopefully I've kind of gotten close to the nature of the question that you're asking.
Now, another question is, how is this archived? I'd like to show my students this next week. That also, the archive address will be sent out to you, and is also going to be on the Minnesota Sea Grant page where the...
So people coming Friday set the course up, so they were kind of autonomous and Friday.
And in any of these data, citizen science stuff or professionally gathered data, the site that we showed you and a number of the others.
We're not going to get that far.
So that are out there are professionally gathered data in for the most part that have been quality controlled and are a lot of them federally sort of sanctioned data that have been through the whole control system. So this is really a good reputable data source that you're accessing through this. There may be, I'm trying to think of any of the things we sent you to are citizen science, but I can't think of any. And yes, the link to the web page with the outline files, our contacts again, and the hyperlinks will be emailed out to this whole list. And then we'll probably do another little just announcement for the people who couldn't be on it today and weren't on our original list.
A site that's got an element of citizen collection that's kind of cool that I've come across and I actually use a fair amount related to precipitation, and it's called COCORAHS. It's kind of like an acronym. So it's COCORAHS, COCORAHS, and each word stands for something. I think collaborative is in there somewhere. But I've found that it's a pretty cool site for visualizing data. And there's a way for you to be able to sign up if you're interested in and have a rain station that you can participate in this network. There's probably a little bit of training involved in it, but I found that it's a pretty cool data site. At least again for kind of showing precipitation patterns all across the country.
Okay, we have another question. Do you know of teachers using this in regular high school class curricula? I would say personally, I don't. I think there might be a few people on the call who have more knowledge of that than me, who are GIS professionals and working with that community. So if any of you are out there, let us know. I know that a teacher I've worked with quite a bit, who's actually a middle school teacher, has worked with students, having them do GIS work, but it's through science fair activities rather than in the regular classroom. But I'm sure there are, and we don't have anyone, unless somebody can weigh in through the chat.
Well, Cindy, I'll throw one out there. So Cindy was there. I was also at a meeting in Grand Rapids, Michigan in early November. It's, I think if I get the name right, it's the Great Lakes Place-Based Education Conference.
Yep.
And at that meeting, a couple of my colleagues here at Wisconsin Sea Grant Klein, our education coordinator, and Ann Mosher, our water resources librarian, presented on a story map journal and a story map tour that that we developed here with a student around a book called People of the Sturgeon. It's a book about the culture of sturgeon, the sturgeon fishery in Wisconsin. And in particular, working with the student, created two beautiful story maps. One was a story map journal based on this book, a new way to experience this beautiful coffee table book. And the other one was a series of photos that were from the sturgeon spearing. And it was when we presented that, there were a number, obviously it's an education conference, there were a number of teachers in the room, and they started correcting me on all kinds of aspects of using this technology. So I know we were at a specialized meeting with teachers that had a particular interest in place-based education, but the ones that were in our session knew about this technology. So I think that might be the first place to go out and reach out a little bit more, that particular community of teachers.
So any suggestion on how to keep this small and not too overwhelming for a high school student? And unfortunately, I just switched from that page, but one of the documents you'll be getting that Ann Pierce put together is called Tips for Accessing Data Sources. And it's organized so that some of the ones that are a little bit more straightforward and easy to pull things from are separated out from the ones that require you to do Excel and CSV files and all that sort of thing. So I don't know if Ann or if David, you want to say any more about that? And the question again was how to keep it small, not too overwhelming.
In the Getting Started guide, it also describes kind of different tiers of data based on your experience using something like a CSV file and adding it to ArcGIS. And we'll hopefully be coming up with either some additional screencasts or some additional guides for those more challenging steps.
That's a good point. I would also point to Esri, some of the materials that they have, the tutorials and the guides that they have there at Getting Started are probably good guides to be able to introduce yourself to the technology and get started, maybe not in such an overwhelming, raging torrent way that maybe I do.
Okay, can we send some of those or include some of the simpler links when we send this out? We will do our best. Even though this may not be possible as a lesson in my art class, I would like to use the resources and themes for painting and drawing lessons. Would my students have access to these resources if I simply wanted to use one aspect? I think they could research the maps and find some images to inspire their work. I think that would be absolutely wonderful. So the more we can do with something like that, the better. And I don't see any limitations. Do you, Dave?
No, and I also say that at the end of that meeting in Grand Rapids, your colleague from Buffalo described an absolutely amazing art project that she did. I believe she's a middle school teacher, and it was in the last session of the meeting, and I'm kind of blanking right now on her name, but I would start with her.
Yeah, if we can find it, we will look. And then finally, I see another one here. The map showing schools and teachers around the area that are using the GIS technology. That was on the Esri website, correct, David?
Yes, I believe that it is. I think that it's going to be in, where are we going to have it?
It's also in the Getting Started guide.
Yeah, okay. Yep. And I think I know who the Buffalo teacher is, so I will just double check with her to make sure she's good to go on sharing all her stuff. Let's see. I love this. Lots of questions. At the beginning, you showed how to save data into Excel as a CSV file. How is that data supposed to be presented in a story map? Should it be presented just as a chart, or is there some way to integrate it into a map through ArcGIS? Absolutely. And that was, I think, we should have shown you that. It's really straightforward. I did it myself, and I am not an ArcGIS person. Within about a half hour, just by following, there's an online tutorial for ArcGIS that makes it very straightforward. And it came in perfectly. I had no trouble with it. David, there are entries of past contests or gallery, aren't there, for past contest contributors?
I think that this is the first student-oriented visualizing nutrients challenge. So I don't think there's going to be any on that side. There was this challenge earlier this year, or last year, that was oriented towards kind of consultants and professionals. And, that was where we got the resource out of place website. Whether or not you can go find other entries or not, that would be something that you would probably dig into the challenge.gov site and poke through there and see whether or not, and I imagine on the challenge.gov site there's going to be other student-oriented challenges, and if it's set up that way that you can go in and look at the entries, that might be the good place for you to go.
I just threw up on the last slide there that CocoRa's website address for whoever asked about that.